Well, greetings, friends. Welcome here to Soul Empowerment. My name is David McLeod. I am your life mastery coach. I am also a shadow shaman and a magnificence mentor. And also, I am the author of this great book, A Life to Die For, Master 10 Key Skills to Transform Your Life into a Priceless Treasure. I hope you'll get a copy of this. It's available on Amazon. Go check it out, grab a copy of it. It's a great little book. And a lot of the stuff that we do here is based on the content of that book. So I hope you'll check it out. I have put my link in the chat box there. So if you want to follow me on the Wellness Universe, you can just click on that and just click follow and you'll be there. And good morning, Nancy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm enjoying being here on this Tuesday, March 10th. I am a recovering shoulder breaker. Haha. I had surgery, learned a lot from that. I'm very excited to say, I know this is personal, but I was able to go back and teach some fitness classes this morning for the first time in 3 weeks. I feel like I've re-entered the world, and I feel like we're in a new world today, what with all of the coronavirus and all of that stuff. What I do when I'm not teaching classes is I am a lifestyle blogger and I am a life coach, specifically for women that are looking to really own who they are by finding their relationship with their self and their body and boundaries. So all of this to me is all interconnected and interrelated.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
So you work mostly with women, and I tend to work with both men and women, although I think most of my clients have been men. I guess that's how we gravitate. We gravitate towards the people who are more like us than different from us.
I always say it's whatever energy that resonates, because I do work with some men. It's a matter of, to me, the energy field, whatever that energy needs to be, that's what always gravitates the clients that are needing to work with me. And for you as well, that's why we're doing the show together. We resonated.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And it's interesting that we talk about resonance. Yeah. Because I think that actually ties in a little bit with our topic today. The title of our show today is called Your True Essence. And it's really about, well, let's take it a step back. And I don't know about you, Nancy, but in my life, I know that I have spent a lot of time and energy trying to show up in a way that I imagined everybody else wanted to see me. And it didn't always work for me. I don't know how it was for you. I found that by doing that, by trying to show up the way I imagined other people wanted to see me, I was obviously not living the truth of who I really am. Mm-hmm. I was not being authentic. I was not being me. And consequently, I was creating for myself a lot of pain and anguish because I was kind of going against my own grain. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so in the long term, I started that practice very, very young. I don't know about you, but I learned at a very young age that, there were certain things I was supposed to do, certain things I was supposed to not do, and expectations, and that I was supposed to go to school and do all these things and go to church and learn all these things, and most of which, the school stuff was okay. That was just intellectual stuff. But a lot of things that I was taught really didn't resonate for me. And that's that word again, resonance, And so as a result, I ended up over the course of about 40 years just becoming more resentful and angry, moment by moment, day by day, to the point where I became pretty unpleasant to be around. Now, of course, I would never have admitted that back then. If you had said to me, man, you're a really angry person, I would have said, I am not.
Right. With a chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, that's right. But, eventually I had to acknowledge the truth of that statement. And then I had to realize, oh boy, this is really a problem. And it's causing pain for other people. I have to do something about this. And so it had an impact on the choices that I made in my life. Yeah. Now we'll talk about that a little bit later, but why don't you talk a little bit about you? Did you go through a similar kind of experience in your life?
Definitely. I think I always thought I had to live my life, I guess, according to the status quo. I thought that my life was one that I just always needed to fit in, to belong, to not stand out or look different. I had to, my physical appearance had to be pleasing and just right. I had to say the right things, I was constantly like looking around to others according to how I thought I needed to be with certain groups or in relationships. And it just imploded. You can only do that for so long. And as we shared, I began to have a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, frustration, and just a sense of heavy cloud over my head. And I think that was the universe telling me to know what's going on here. So that was definitely a big part of my life until that shift really began to get my attention to now what? Next move.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was it that shifted for you then that allowed you to get out of that trap?
Well, it was a series of things. One of the most notable things, unfortunately, I had a falling out with a very, very close friend that was almost like a sister to me. Mm-hmm. The fallout from that relationship that caused me to go into, a lot of anger, sadness, and grieving, all meant for me to experience who was I? What did I want and need? And then with that sitting and stewing with me, I began to take some yoga classes. And in those very few classes of not knowing what even yoga was, I was given permission in Shavasana to just experience being. And that was like a positive bubble that was like, wow, I want more of this. This is something that's good. So my instincts began to shift me from what was heavy and negative into, this is what good can feel like. So it was like a series of things. And then the curiosity from the yoga class and maybe why was I still resisting this, grieving, gave me permission, I guess, to take little steps forward into training and studying and reading. And it was a whole evolution for me. It definitely was not like a 1 day or 1 month journey, but it was those little things. A negative thing, I guess, were heavy. And then this positive life affirming experience of the yoga class in the mind body.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, my situation was similar, getting to that level of anger and realizing that, I had to do something and not knowing what the hell to do, not knowing who to turn to. I mean, I went to all the traditional places that we were supposed to go to, at least in my lifetime. And I lived in Canada. I was a Canadian and lived up in Canada. And so, we may not have been quite as advanced in some areas as people are down here. So the typical resources available were, you got your friends that you can talk to, you got your family, and you got your church.
Yeah.
And that was really about it. Now, my family really wasn't all that receptive to the idea of, opening the heart and talking and that kind of stuff. Not that I was even ready for that, but that's not something that I would have gone to. And my friends seemed to be kind of shallow about the whole thing. Well, maybe you just gotta, I don't know. They gave me some pretty vapid, unuseful advice. And the church, well, of course, the church just wanted me to put it in the hands of Jesus and let Jesus solve my problem, which, I think Jesus has got his hands full with everybody else. And I really wasn't ready to, unload, even though I tried. So in my mind, I thought none of these solutions are working for me. And there's nothing I can find in my local area. So my ultimate solution turned out to be one of escape. Mm-hmm. I ran away. Basically, that's what I did. I mean, I didn't just do it without notice. I told people what I was going to do. I made my decision that I was going to leave my family and head down to California. Now, California, why? It had nothing to do with personal growth at the time. It had to do with the fact that I was a software engineer and I could get a decent job there. That's why I went to California. But my spirit and my soul knew that there was a lot of other good stuff for me there.
Yeah.
And because I went to California, I was exposed to all kinds of amazing modalities and trainings and workshops and seminars and you name it. And slowly over time, I began to get a handle on this anger. And then in May of 2003, I had a really huge breakthrough. I went to a men's weekend and I was able to basically unload all that anger in a very, very tight, safe, powerful container of men. And what was interesting to me is when I got underneath all that anger, then I got down to what was really bothering me. It was a huge amount of sorrow and grief. And as I uncovered this, it didn't all happen in the one weekend, but a big chunk of it did. Over the course of, probably a couple of years after that, I began to understand where that sorrow was coming from. And that sorrow was coming from the fact that I had been denying myself for so long. And so the beauty of that process was I was able to reclaim the truth of who I really am, and then start what's the word I want to say here? Amending or fixing the broken relationships I had. So I was able to reconnect with my children. Those were the ones I was most concerned about. And, they still suffered some pain from the fact that I left. So I had to deal with that. And so it was a lot of conflict created in my life as a result of the choices that I made when I was only 2.5 or 3 years old to start doing what everybody else wanted me to do. And I think most people, I'd say almost most of us in the world are taught to do that sort of thing. We're taught to put our own needs and wants behind the scenes and to start focusing our attention on everybody else around us to our own expense. And cost, we don't even recognize the cost that we're creating when we do that, but it leads to a lot of internal pain, which then comes out outwardly and starts hurting other people. So in our attempt to try and be good people, we turn out to be, well, for want of a better word, assholes that hurt other people. And so that's what we're here to talk about today, how to uncover that stuff, do some healing around it, and then getting down to the truth of who you really are, and then start just blossoming into that.
This content today has many layers to it, but your journey is one that speaks to so many of us, that bubbling, that frustration or anger is just the uppermost shelf. And when you drill down, you find that wounded child or something that was unrecognized or marginalized in you that's trying to push up. And maybe that anger is that I want to get this out, but of course we don't know that. I didn't know that at the time. It was from a deep point of sadness or it's unrecognized something. But now that I have the tools, when I feel that little anger, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Let's go beneath the surface. Let's take some steps down into the basement, the dark hole. And, okay. Let's bring in some compassion and love here. And it's okay.
Right. And yet, now you might talk about compassion and love.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but my ego mind is pretty nasty sometimes, especially towards me. And when I didn't know how to control my ego mind, what was happening is it was controlling me. It was driving all my behaviors. And it was not until I was able to, as you say, drill down into the basement and get down to the truth and the nugget that I was able to start to diffuse the power of my ego mind and start to allow my soul to blossom in through.
Yeah.
And as long as, we all have ego minds. There's no way, as long as we're in this physical world, there's no way to get rid of it. So the thing to do is to learn how to tame it. The thing to do is to learn how to treat it with love and compassion so that it doesn't keep doing all these hateful, horrible things.
Yeah.
That's the secret. And compassion for the ego is really compassion for all of me.
Yeah, that is so true. I think many of us are so numb that we think that we need to further the flame of anger, that we feel we are as we inflict more anger, we're letting it all go. When at the end of that anger session, I don't know about you, but I was depleted and it didn't feel any better. Maybe I was just released, I guess would be the feeling. But yeah, it's when I really learned how to turn the mirror back to me in a way that was, at times it was painful and uncomfortable. But when I was able to do that, then you could really see things for what the truth of where they are. And I'm not going to say that it's a perfect one and done. I had to do a lot of work recently because when I broke my shoulder, I think that we hold emotions from my background. We hold emotions in our spine, in our shoulders, and our hips that just stay there. And I think this sounds painful, but when I broke my shoulder, I released a bunch of trapped crap, I call it. Yeah. So I could feel as I was laying there, all these old thoughts bubbling up. Like, you've done it now. Now what? Just this nasty stuff. I'm like, God, I'm in pain and I've got all this crap in my mind. Why?
Right.
So I had to go on a little mini journey this past month to like you said, to surrender and tame it and treat it, to really see it for what it was. I mean, it really means for me to be open to receiving love, because I think that's why I broke my shoulder.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure glad that it's healed now, or almost healed. I know you're still in process, but at least it's not broken anymore.
No, it's not broken. No, it's healing. Yeah. So, yep.
Yeah, and the fact that you were able to go out and actually teach a class again, it tells me that you're recovering quite nicely.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we've been talking a lot about some of the negative aspects of allowing ourselves to simply fall into the trap of just doing what the rest of the world wants us to do and be, rather than just doing and being who we really are. And so let's just talk a little bit about some of the examples. Now, I mean, I think about, I send, if you imagine it, in order to show up the way I imagine other people want to see me, I send a representative, an agent, an ambassador. It's not the real David. It's just somebody who looks like David, and he behaves in a certain way in order to what? In order to get approval, in order to be liked, in order to get connection with people. So some of my strategies, I love being the center of attention. I love telling jokes. So I'll say stuff that's humorous to get the laughs. And then when people laugh, I imagine that means they like me. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of this bizarre little twisted strategy that I use used to use. I don't do it anymore, but I used to use to get that kind of connection. Give me an example of one of your strategies? What was your agent?
My agent was to show up perfect. Okay. I had to have back in the day when I was a full-time mom and teaching classes, I knew that I was going to get acknowledgement by having well-groomed children, by being well-groomed myself, by knowing what to say, knowing what not to say, laughing, just being so easygoing, just contained. And just everyone to have people say, wow, you've got it all together. Oh, wow. Thank you. Of course I do. Sure. Yeah. So that supposedly polished veneer.
Right. So, those are a couple of strategies that people use. And I can resonate with the perfectionist one too. I mean, I still have that aspect of me. I'm a very detail-oriented person. So, when I want to release something like this book that I wrote, for example, I got to tell you, it was never going to be perfect, but I kept trying to make it as perfect as I could make it. And so that kept delaying how long it was going to be before it got published. So perfectionism is one thing that we do. But it's not always necessary to look, or not always that we're trying to look good in order to get connection. Sometimes we go into our neediness. We go into our, poor me. I really need someone to give me a hug, to hold me, to, in order to feel that connection. And you see what we're doing here is we're trying to create connection with other people. We're trying to it's a strategy.
Yeah.
And yet, isn't it kind of ironic that the people I am most attracted to, in my mind anyway, are the ones who seem to be totally authentic, who don't seem to care what other people think about them. Those are the people that I tend to, to find myself attracted to. Do you find that yourself?
Definitely. I think especially before I knew who I was always attracted to people that appeared to be really calm, comfortable in their own skin, not swaying or changing who they were based on the situation, the event, or, what was said or not said. So I definitely had a strong pull toward people that I perceived that were themselves,
right.
Comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? That now, maybe that's not a universal thing. I mean, I'm probably projecting a little bit here, but it seems to me that those people who are really, as you say, comfortable in their own skin, who are willing to show up as who they really are, those tend to be the ones that we find generally inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely the story for me. That began to move the needle for me to get out and want to explore what about them? What about their qualities or traits? How can I learn that? What can I do to get that? So I guess I took that physical essence of that person and maybe reached out to them a little bit more, shared some of my struggles or pains, and then maybe they would throw me a nugget. Okay, I sat with that and maybe found a way to study it or take a training or a course about things that they gave me insight.
Right.
Another one for me that was showing up authentic, like for instance, being on this show, I feel great, comfortable, and fun. Had you told me 3 years ago we were going to do this, I would have gone into absolute panic mode. I would have fed myself every possible negative thing because I didn't know who I was. So how can I be on a show if people are going to find out that I'm a phony, a fake? They're going to see all my flaws. And I would have shut the door on that. But because I know who I am at my essence, or I'm continuing to evolve and grow that, being on here who I am today, no problem. If I say or don't say, it's all good because we're all learning today. We're all evolving and growing.
Right.
But yeah, that's definitely part of the journey of finding and owning and working through things.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you shared that because, this obviously brings up a question. And so if we tend to behave the way we imagine other people want us to behave, and which isn't necessarily truly authentic. Now, there's obviously I can try to please people and still be authentic to who I really am, but it's confusing. It's confusing. Yeah. If my ego mind is constantly on my case, saying to me, "Hey, you've got to do this in order to get that. You've got to behave this way in order to satisfy all these people. Otherwise, you're going to get branded as, a black sheep or a bad guy or this or that or the other thing." And that's the whole point of this is we're paying attention to our ego mind more than we're paying attention to our soul. Our soul doesn't have that kind of judgment. It really doesn't. It sees everything as beautiful and amazing and fantastic and wonderful. Yeah. It doesn't have those judgments. It doesn't tell you you're a bad person. It doesn't tell you you're going to do this. If you do this, then you're going to get this problem. It doesn't tell you you're going to go to hell when you sin. That is strictly an ego mind thing.
Yeah, but also we have those labels. Growing up, we were given those labels. We were told as children, by people that we trusted or authority, that if you do this, that's bad, that's evil, that's wrong. And so we applied this weird veil of that label that kind of directed us to either get really sneaky and manipulative or to be afraid or, whatnot. And that was factored in to my identity. Yeah.
That's absolutely right. I like that. You mentioned sneaky and manipulative. That's Yeah. How many people do you know have behaved in sneaky or manipulative manner?
Oh, pretty much about everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you can tell that they're caught up in their ego mind.
Yeah.
When they're in their spiritual space, manipulation just doesn't happen. But when they're caught up in the ego mind and the drama of the ego mind and trying to satisfy the needs of the ego mind, look out. Manipulation is just guaranteed to happen.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So here's what so you and I have talked about how we were before we began this known journey of drilling down to begin to feel comfortable, authentic in our body. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can share a little bit of what would be some how-to steps, I guess. I mean, it is kind of squishy, but there's definitely a little bit of a way to begin to factor that in.
Right.
This movement.
Absolutely. I think that, first of all of us, if we wish to grow into the full expression of who we really are, we have to be able to recognize how we're holding ourselves back, how we're stopping ourselves. And that's why we're spending so much time talking about this. Most of what's happening for us is happening through the ego mind. It's just the way our human bodies are constructed. And we have to work hard to quiet the ego mind enough that we can get down into the spiritual essence of who we are. So one of the things that I teach a little process. I call it the repeated question game. I think you and I we talked a little bit about this.
Yeah.
Now, the repeated question game, it can be applied to pretty much any question. I learned it in a couple of different meditation classes. But I started to apply it to this idea of who am I? And it turns out that this is a really powerful little tool, because the way it works is it works best if I have a partner, if I have somebody I am doing it with, and one of us will be the interviewer and the other one will be the responder. And the person who's interviewing, so let's say I was interviewing you. And we would set ourselves up in a certain way. We can't do that here on camera, but we could do it like in a room. The way we would do it is we would sit down in chairs of equal height. We'd be facing each other, and we'd be close enough that we can see each other's eyes and the physical expressions and so forth, but we're not touching. All right. Yeah. So we're just close enough that we can see each other. And then the interviewer, that would be me in this case, I would ask the question, who are you? And the responder would simply answer with whatever is true in that moment, with as few words as possible. Now, usually it's going to be a noun or an adjective or something like that. But you simply say, I am, followed by whatever it is. Then the interviewer says, oh, thank you. And I try to express as much gratitude as I can without being forceful or ridiculous about it. And then I say again, who are you? And we continue that process. So when you are confronted with the question as the responder, you simply just kind of go inside and answer whatever's true in the moment. And I will say thank you and do it again. Do you understand the process? Mm-hmm. All right. So why don't we just do it here for a few rounds and see how it goes? You just kind of be true to yourself. All right. So you might begin when I say the first time, you've never done this game before. You might say, oh, I'm Nancy. Perfect. That's a perfect place to start. So let's start at the highest level, and we'll just kind of slowly work our way down, and we'll see what happens. All right.
Do I get to do it with you, and after you've done it with me, or are we just doing it with me?
Well, it'll take. I think it might take too much time. I mean, I'm certainly happy to do it with you as well. Okay. But are you ready?
Yeah.
So let's pretend then we're sitting down, facing each other.
Okay.
And you can, I'm right there, right next to you, across the way, and I'm just going to be sitting here quietly asking you the question. And you'll notice that I change my inflection. I do all kinds of interesting things to make the game more interesting for you. All right, Nancy, so let's take a couple of deep breaths together. Hmm. Who are you?
A woman.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you?
High energy.
Thank you. Who are you?
Seeking and growing spiritually.
Thank you. When you answer, just say "I am" at the
Oh,
start.
okay. Okay.
Thanks. Who are you?
I am encouraging to others.
Thank you. Who are you?
I am a loving, light-filled person.
Thank you. Who are you?
I am becoming and releasing more and more and more.
Thank you. Who are you?
I am joyful and abundant, and sometimes uncertain.
Thank you. Who are you?
A light-filled, encouraging woman.
Thank you. Who are you?
I am in process of being synchronicity with my soul.
Thank you. All right. So just pause there. You can see we could take this as long as we want. And each time you now have a new opportunity to explain or express a little bit more of who you are. How did that feel for you?
That was very powerful. Given the space of how you asked the questions, I could feel your loving energy, and it just caused me to respond with what was meant to come up.
Beautiful. And so did you notice how you okay, and I want to be careful about this question. I don't want to put words in your mouth here. Did you have any judgment about your answers as you were saying them?
I think with the first couple I did. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I've got to put something out there. So initially I did. Yeah. And then once I moved into the energy of what we were doing, I just moved with it. But initially the first question and maybe the second one popped that into me. Yeah.
Okay, great. So now, why don't we try it going the other way? I'll be the victim now.
Okay, this is going to be fun. Let me know when you're ready. Let's take a moment.
I had to cough there. I didn't want to cough into the recording.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Who are you?
I am David.
Who are you?
I am a loving man.
Who are you?
I am a musician and poet.
Who are you?
I am a sensitive being.
Who are you?
I am empty.
And who are you?
I'm very bright.
Mm. Who are you?
I am silence.
Who are you now?
I am vast and open.
How do you feel?
Well, I love this process. I love that I am able to peel away certain layers and start getting down deeper and deeper. And so the feeling that I have with that is joy and expansiveness. I like that word, expansive. It's like growing and already infinite. Yeah.
That's very powerful.
It is. And we just did it for a very short time.
Yeah.
In ideal situation, you'd probably spend 5 minutes in each direction.
Yeah.
And I also recommend that at the end, each person should, journal something, a little bit of an understanding of who you really are, because this is an eye-opening exercise. It helps you to see that you're not necessarily your name or your gender or any of the roles you play as a mother, a father, a husband, a wife, a lover, a friend. Those are just characteristics and qualities and attributes that you bring into the world because of who you are. But who you are isn't those things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of this process. And it's I've done this many, many times. I've been on both ends of this many, many times. And every time I try to start at the top and just kind of see what happens. So I've came up with some new answers today that I haven't come up with before. It's beautiful.
I love that. And what I think with this game, this process, is it kind of is a little platform for those listening that it starts with surrender. So you have that first bit, like I said, I had resistance. And then as you go through it, you're beginning to surrender some of your labels, your identity, your role, your label. And then as you surrender, you're opening the door to allowing things to bubble up that have always been there, that we just have covered up because we're maybe so busy doing our labels or we don't know how. And then we get to discard the things that have never been true or maybe are no longer true. And that's when the transformation, the newness occurs. Like with me, I would never have said, I am a beautiful, light-filled woman. You would not have caught me saying that 5 years ago, especially even longer. But wow, I'm a beautiful, light-filled woman.
Absolutely. That's right. And the notice, though, that when you're saying it, you're not saying it with pride. You're saying it with humility.
Yes.
Because it's just who I am. It's not about bragging, and it's not about trying to puff yourself up in any way.
Yeah.
This is it. This is who I am. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, great. That's the way it is.
It's not self-flattery, or coming up with terms or descriptions to get the attention of others. It's placing that word that you will show up to actually compliment others, to be that, right, to be that light-filled being. And it's interesting. I've had I participated in a wellness festival, and somebody, I had a lot of fun that day, was open, and somebody who came up and said, "Boy, you have a lot of light energy today," So I was like, that was floating from within me, that was just there,
right,
that this particular person picked up on. And I think that is a big deal, showing up, as you said, at the soul level, from the inside out, because we've always been taught to live from the outside in. That was a big deal. What's that shell look like? That's really important, that shell, the career, the income, the social standing, the power, the right attributes, living from the outside in. And my life really changed when I learned that no, you live from the inside out, which threw away a lot of the things that I had been taught in my life and shaped and conditioned by marketing, parents, school, others.
Right. What I find interesting is, well, there's a lot of things I find interesting about this process, but let's just talk about the process a little bit more. I notice every time I do this, when I answer the question, it feels true in that moment. But the next moment, when you ask the question again, now I sort of think, now I'm feeling this instead, or in addition to. It's not necessarily that the other thing is no longer true. It's just, this feels more true right now.
So it's always shifting and evolving each hour or each day.
Each instant.
Yeah.
And the other thing I noticed is, it's much easier to step into the truth of who I am when I allow my ego mind to just kind of dissolve and go quiet. And that is probably the biggest challenge that most of us face. How do we get the ego mind to go quiet?
Especially when we're always running the show, for most of us, it's like a just constantly working.
Well, and I don't know that there's not a one size fits all answer for this. But I know that for me, one technique that I have found very helpful when I become aware of the fact that my ego mind is really, really loud in my head and it's running the show, what I try to do is I'll find a way to go quiet myself, just sit down somewhere and just start paying attention. Now, this sounds counterintuitive, but when I pay attention to my ego mind and just start listening to what it has to say, without trying to argue, without trying to make my ego mind wrong, I just simply listen, as if I'm listening to a little child. What's going on? Tell me more about that. I try to be the unconditionally loving parent to my little inner child, who is really the one doing all the yapping and arguing, because I shut him down when I was younger. So when I bring that loving attention to my ego mind, what happens, I notice, this is true for me, is after a while, it kind of gets itself, is spent out, all the venom is gone, it goes quiet. I feel, okay, great, this is great. Now I can just kind of imagine, in my mind, I imagine I reach out and I grab this little child, just give him a big hug. And I say, I love you. And when I do that, it helps the ego mind go quiet. It helps me then to become more present in my spiritual essence.
Yeah.
That works for me. Now, sometimes, and I'm a human just like anybody else, sometimes I'll get caught up in my ego mind and I might end up in an argument with you about something. And I'm so busy trying to be right, I forget about the fact that I'm caught up in my ego.
Yeah.
Does that happen to you?
Of course, because like I said, we're dynamic and we still have triggers that we have an old way of reacting based on that early conditioning. So yes, that definitely happens. Like I said, with my shoulder, I had a lot of that going on. That child that was injured in some way, in my life was speaking to me. That child wanted my love and attention. And the shoulder got it. So, but because we had done that work of beginning to understand and know, I was able to quiet the ego mind and bring in love. And that is a journey. I did not, like I said, I did not know when I was searching initially that I could do that. Like, what? I can be kind to myself and push aside that ego that's always telling me I'm wrong, or do it better, or push harder, or ignore it. Oh, so yeah, definitely. It's a process to move into a place where you know that you can love yourself first. You don't have to give it all away to everyone else. You don't have to constantly emanate high energy to everyone and everything. And that's another thing. We are conditioned in our world to put ourselves last. So it seems that there's high esteem or priority when we put ourselves last in the name of getting it done for our career, our caregiving, whatever, that's to be admired and revered, taking a back seat, not going without something so everyone can get. But it's funny because people it's known, but not shared, that when you constantly do that, you're so depleted that there's nothing in you that really can be of value after a while when you're that depleted.
Exactly.
It's
exactly
so interesting.
Yep.
Why doesn't everybody share that? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think, people who like you and me who are doing this kind of work and trying to coach other people and help them, we do teach them that. But the people who need to hear it aren't necessarily open to hearing it just yet.
Yeah.
So that's part of the challenge that you and I face is we already see a solution to a problem. And we want people to see it, but they're not ready to see it. You know what I mean? By the way, did you ever see that movie, What the Bleep Do We Know?
No, I didn't. I guess I need to watch it.
It's when was that? Like early 2000s, I think. I can't remember exactly when that show was, but I really enjoyed it. It was bringing the whole concept of quantum physics and stuff into the world. And there was one scene in that movie that has always stuck with me. And if you haven't seen the movie, it might not make any sense. But part of the movie had this idea of when the explorers came from the old world over into the new world, all these ships, we imagine that there was all these ships that slowly came over to, North America and that sort of thing. Well, imagine the people on the land there as these ships are arriving. They've never seen ships like this before, right? Mm-hmm. And they may not even notice them because they're just not prepared to see the ship. And this was the scene that was in the movie. And there's this one medicine man or a shaman or whatever you want to call him. He could see the ships. And so he's looking at these people, what's going on? And he realized he has to help elevate their level of awareness. And the way they symbolized this was he just simply touched them on the forehead. And that's what you and I are doing. We're doing our part to try and raise awareness and help people get more elevated in their consciousness so that they can stop doing these dysfunctional behaviors and start living into the total potential of who they really are.
Most definitely. Yeah. I mean, that would definitely be my journey, is to stop the dysfunctional behavior and thoughts that I thought were real, which left me in a pattern of spinning or moving a little bit and then back, stepping back into just finding tools and skills and resources that energized and opened up a whole new way of being able to navigate the emotional landscape of life, or the physical landscape, or to do the work that we're doing. But definitely that's this topic today, like I said, it seems intangible, but it's it's really foundational. It's a stepping stone to evolve the world. We're in I know we're in a place right now energetically that as we as a human race begin to walk away, and I know my children are I can tell they're in that, walk away from the old generational things and up level, bringing in the new. There's a big shift going on right now, and you and we've crossed over because we've been doing this work. So we're leaving the old shift, we're in the new one, and our children are young adults or whatever, they're in this, they're moving into that. So
right, there's a lot of movement in that direction. I need to mute somebody here, sorry. There we go. This idea of knowing who you are and getting down to your true essence. Now, I have a statement about who I am that completely transcends everything that I ever used to say before. After having done this repeated question game so many times and doing all the deep work that I've done, I have come to a new understanding of who and what I really am. And so let me just share that with you, and maybe this for you. So I'm a divine, magnificent, spiritual being of light and love who happens to be sharing a human experience with everyone else on the planet. Ooh. That's how I see myself now.
Wow.
That seems to answer every question that I have. When people ask me, who are you? I don't tell them that right away, because I know that what they really want to know is what my name or something like that. So I'll tell them that. But I do that now from the knowing of who I really am.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I know you, some of the answers that you gave me the same sense. So you recognize this aspect of yourself too. So maybe you want to tell us now who you really are.
Who I really am right now today is a loving, light-filled being whose purpose at this point is to encourage others to open up to all that they are meant to do and be, with joy, with abundance, and with an openness to in boldness, to have the courage to move and go. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, beautiful.
Who I am. Yeah.
All right. So do you have some suggestions for people how they can keep deepening the process and understanding more and more deeply who they really are? Because no matter what answer you come to, at some point you're going to say, oh, there's something even deeper than that.
I definitely, like I said, my own and recent experience, you begin by just being curious and aware. Like if you're feeling an uncomfortable feeling, or you have a physical sensation in your body, rather than saying, oh, I'm, this is from an old injury, or I'm getting older, or whatever, pause and just be curious. What could that thing be wanting for me to learn and to dive into? So recognizing and sensing physical sensation in your body, maybe it's stomach or chest or throat or headache or backache, or notice if you have a recurring words or phrases that you use when certain events or scenarios, being aware and noticing that. And instead of just running through to the next thing, do some curious work. This has been very life affirming for me, that when instead of just accepting that I'm angry today because I'm tired or hungry or whatever, I pause and I do those questions like, what's the source of this anger? And it usually has nothing to do with the event or the person. It's something in me that needs to be healed, or something that I'm sensing that needs to be healed in them. So that's a big deal. Just being really curious and interested, and not accepting at face value your feelings, thoughts, emotions, or physical sensations in your body, because there's always more to be learned when you just give yourself permission to do a little thought work and a little exploration. Because how else can we grow if don't take that first step of being curious and processing?
Right. I think that's some great advice, and you're leading into another area that I really, really value, and that's the whole notion of projection. You know, when you're feeling something inside that's somehow related to another person, for example, you look out and you see somebody behaving in a certain way, and you think maybe have some judgment about that person. You know, oh, that person's arrogant, or what a jerk, or, you know, any phrase that pops into your head when you happen to look out and see something like that. It's a great opportunity for you to look inside and say, okay, so what is that saying about me? How is it that I show up as arrogant? How is it that I behave like a jerk? And don't judge yourself about it. Just ask yourself the question from a place of authentic curiosity, just like Nancy said. And you can then discover something about yourself that you may not have noticed before, right? Because that's the beauty of projection. Everything that we see, we think happens out there. But really, the entire process of seeing and understanding what we see all happens internally. Think about that for a minute. There may not even be anybody out there. It's just it could be pure imagination. But the point is, it's an opportunity to recognize something about ourselves. And so curiosity can help us to get underneath it and find out more about it.
Yeah, definitely. And there's just so many facets of that, like being comfortable enough to project and then turn that mirror back onto you with enough comfort and love that you can do that work. If a person is really dealing with a lot of confidence or self-loathing, that might be a really challenging step to lovingly look at these things with a different lens rather than a lens of, you know, let's self-deprecate. That's a big, that kind of factors in as well. But once you're able to shift and move that, wow, how much can you really grow comfortably authentic in your own life, and then give that to everyone. You know, gosh, we could go on and on with this topic.
And if we don't watch it, we will, because we're already running out of time.
Oh, wow.
I hate to say it. Yeah, it's been almost an hour already. Wow. And I want to honor the time limit that we put on this. And if anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to post, please feel free to put them in the chat. But other than that, I just want to say that next month, the second Tuesday of April, I don't know what that date is off the top of my head, but it'll be the second Tuesday in April. We're going to be talking about the power of choice and how we need to take responsibility for our choices in life. And really, this comes out of the concept of who I really am, because my choices are just a reflection or an expression, if you like, of my true essence. So this is going to be an interesting conversation too. And next week, or next month, I should say, Stephanie will be back to join us. She's away on a conference this time, but she'll be back to join us then. And so I will wish you all very wonderful love and light on your journey. And thank you, Nancy, for being with me here today. Do you have anything else you'd like to say before I close it out?
I hope that you guys have received some little nuggets of takeaway that you can begin to explore more deeply with your walk with yourself in life. And if you feel so inclined, giving that love to those in your life. We are all in this world together to illuminate it during these times. And anything that I learn, I like to show up and explore it with my own self and then give it to others. So keep on. It really felt your energy today. Thank you so much, you guys, for being here with us. Yeah.
And just a reminder, within the next few hours, you will probably receive an email with an opportunity to provide a review for us. I would really be honored and blessed if you could give us an authentic, genuine, unfake 5-star review. That would be fabulous. And because that's what helps us to expand this show and get more people interested. So thank you. Goodbye. And we'll see you next month.
Goodbye. Thank you so much, guys.